Hey, folks. Today's episode brought to you by one of my favorite sponsors, sunsetlakesabade.com. Summer's here. Let's talk about something that should be easy to find, but seems harder and harder to come by, particularly these specific days. I'm talking about relaxation, a little bit of calm, a little feeling at ease. Well, if you want to decompress this summer, enjoy a little time with your friends, lose yourself in a book for a few hours, give Sunset Lake Sebade a try. Our friends at sunsetlakesebade.com are running a site-wide sale right now. Usually it's 20% off, but right now, if you use the word July and the number 4 with no space, July 4, you will get 25% off site-wide on everything. That's the word July and the number 4, no spaces. Sunset Lake Sebade has all sorts of tinctures. I use the Goodnight oil. It works most nights unless I am up trying to follow a Republican vote at 3 a.m, which is a huge mistake. But how will I get over that? Well, the long weekend, July 4th, I probably will enjoy a pre-roll maybe at one point, or I'll take some gummies, relax gummies, focus gummies, gummies with THC, just a tiny bit. You can also get fudge and coffee, whole array of products, including even a tincture for your pet with Sebade. All of it third-party tested, independently tested. Their farming practices, no pesticides. They use integrated pest management. And of course, you can feel good about this company. Our friends at sunsetlakesebade.com help support causes that we care about too. These guys are movement partners. They have donated literally tens of thousands of dollars to things like carceral reform, refugee resettlement, Planned Parenthood, strike relief funds, direct aid for impoverished families. They've involved themselves in mutual aid. They've supported independent media outlets by sponsoring our program and a bunch of others. Don't let this summer pass you by. De-stress, decompress when you head to sunsetlakesebade.com. Use the coupon code July4. The word July, the number 4, to save 25% site-wide. The sale ends July 7th at midnight Eastern, so get on it. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
Ever get the feeling you've been cheated?
It is Thursday, July 3rd, 2025. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Digby Parton. Help us review this week and absorb the impending vote on Capitol Hill. Then later in the program, Brandon Sutton of The Discourse and Matt Binder of Doomed and Scam Economy and The Disruptionist. Also on the program, Republicans appear to be on the verge of passing the single largest giveaway to the rich and destruction of the safety net in decades. In anticipation of ICE having a budget larger than many countries' armies. Downloads of the app Ice Block soar. The app Ice Block. Ice Block. The app on all platforms. As Trump dismantles the National Science Foundation, America's brain drain picks up pace. In a new report, Donald Trump was the one who planted the New York Times article on Elon Musk's drug use. I mean, it's not like everybody didn't know. But I gave the blessing. Kilmara Brego Garcia apparently was beaten and tortured in Trump's buddy's El Salvador gulag. Meanwhile, Israel kills 94 Palestinians over the past day, including 45 who were waiting for food. This after U.S. contractors say colleagues are firing live ammo at those Palestinians waiting for food. Wisconsin Supreme Court strikes down the 176-year-old zombie abortion law. That's a direct result of that election in April. Dr. Phil's anti-woke TV network goes belly up despite all the great ride-alongs with ICE. Zoran Mamdani gets the New York City Teacher Union endorsement, and the FCC blocks its own ban on prison phone price gouging. Lastly, the economy adds 147,000 jobs, topping expectations, but half of those are seasonally adjusted state and municipal government hires. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us. It's another one of those days we are right now, as we speak. Hakeem Jeffries is on the floor of the House. We could even just bring up some live footage. I mean, let's just check in. I'm not sure how much it does. This is known as the Magic Minute. And apparently, not sure of the specific details of this parliamentary procedure, but prior to this final vote,
Democrats,
for whatever reason, I think it's just the minority leader gets the opportunity to address the House. Kevin McCarthy did something like this prior to a Democratic budget. I think he spoke for 8 hours. Jeffries has been doing this now for 7, I think it is.
7 hours, 15 minutes, yep.
7 hours and 15 minutes. Is there a value to it? It doesn't cost anything.
It's worth a shot. I
mean,
Fetterman might miss his beach holiday, but
well, I think Fetterman's already gone.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
he's gone,
the
yeah.
Senate is already gone. So just to give you a sense of what's going on here, a rule had to be passed to essentially adopt, I think, the Senate bill as is, and now we're about to have the vote on the House signing off essentially on the Senate bill. The Senate bill was even worse than the one that the House produced 2 weeks ago or a week ago. It cuts $1 trillion from Medicaid. We'll go through this with Digby, but supposedly, according to the reporting, Johnson says he has the votes to pass this bill. He expects to lose 1 or 2 votes. I think one of them is probably going to be, I think it's Fitzpatrick from Pennsylvania. I don't know who the other will be. Maybe Massey. All of the Freedom Caucus people folded. And we will go into why. Let's take who do we have? Norman? Is that who we have?
yeah, it's number 6.
Number 6. Okay, so Number 6? No.
Ralph Norman explains why he flip-flop and supports the bill.
I don't. Maybe that's number. No, I don't have that as number 6. But okay, let's go to Ralph Norman explaining why he supports the bill after coming out so strongly against it.
Sir, what I don't understand is you had a view that was negative about this bill yesterday. Is there something different about the bill today?
Yeah, it is. We met with President Trump, and he did a masterful job of laying out how we could improve it, how he could use, as his chief executive office, use things to make the bill better.
So there's going to be there are big distinctions between. I guess what I'm trying to understand is the bill that was sent from the Senate back to you is fundamentally different from yesterday to today, because then the Senate would have to.
Different. No, it's we accepted the bill as is. What's different is President Trump is going to use his powers to, like on the subsidies, to make sure that a lot of these subsidies won't remain in effect, from here on out. And
okay, now he's obviously a little bit tired and just trying to pretend like there's some reason why he's voting for it. They all came out. The Freedom Caucus guys came out and said, "Well, we spoke to the president, and he is going to crack down on the green." Or the sustainable energy tax subsidies and make sure that they're all legit over the course of the next 6 months, where businesses have to start. And I think it is spend 5% of what the total cost of their projects are. And supposedly he's going to crack down. That is the story that the Freedom Caucus is trying to push as to what changed to make them support a bill that creates a near $4 trillion deficit. And that's even, I think, with the funky math that they're doing, that cuts $1 trillion from Medicaid, that cuts hundreds of billions from SNAP, and that cuts massive taxes for the rich. But their big sticky point was, we really want you to be tough in making sure that you're giving out these tax subsidies for the next 6 months, as opposed to the next 9 years, which was slated, in a legit way. It's just pathetic. But we'll see if that is enough to placate people. I want to do this clip too. This is one of the big lies, and we'll talk to Digby about this, because I just don't know that the Democrats did a particularly good job in articulating what these cuts really mean. Here is Steve Scalise. And you've heard this, not this clip, but you've heard everything that is being said in this clip multiple times over the past month or two. Here's Steve Scalise on the floor. I guess this was sometime yesterday.
Before. If you're disabled on Medicaid right now, you've been crowded out of those programs by people turning down work. Able-bodied people, 35-year-olds sitting at home playing video games. They're going to now have to go get a job. That's right. And by the way, that's a good thing for them. Their mom doesn't want them sitting in the basement playing video games anyway. But now it no longer will be crowding out Medicaid for the truly needy people who deserve it.
Okay. Aside from the lie about the all these unemployed people, we know from Arkansas and from Georgia, when they tested these work requirements out, that what happens is that people who are eligible end up just being swamped with paperwork, and they can't They can't get through it. Sometimes they're working so much they don't have time to do it. But Medicaid does not crowd out anybody. You either eligible for Medicaid or you're not eligible for Medicaid. It is akin to an automatic stabilizer. When the need grows and the number of people who pass a threshold or drop below I guess you could say, a threshold of income grows, they get added to Medicaid. Medicaid rolls are not static. SNAP is not static. There is no one number of people who will be covered by Medicaid or who will receive SNAP benefits. And so it's a lie. It's not about crowding out anybody. And it's also not about savings to reinvest in Medicaid because all of those savings are going out the door in tax cuts to wealthy people. So this isn't going to extend the future of the program. This isn't going to prevent people from being crowded out. Everybody knows what's going to happen. Anywhere from 14 to 18 million people now with this Senate bill are going to lose their health care. And we're all going to end up paying for it. I mean, some people, tens of thousands a year, are going to pay with their lives. But we're also going to end up paying for it in terms of expense. But I don't know. We'll talk to Digby in a moment, get her sense as to whether Democrats have done a good job of articulating these dynamics. First, a word from our sponsor today, Liquid IV. This is always my easiest pitch to do because literally I'm using the product as we speak. No, it's not the bottle. It's what's in it. I've got the raspberry lemonade version of Liquid IV, the sugar-free. I drink at least a bottle of this per episode. You see me doing this all the time. It's not coffee. I'm getting hydrated. And that hydration lasts throughout the day. Doesn't matter how hot your summer gets, Liquid IV can keep you hydrated for all the adventures ahead, even if it involves just sitting at a desk talking about some of the worst effing news you've ever heard. Summer heat means it's the perfect time to try their new Arctic raspberry flavor. Plus, Liquid IV has sugar-free solutions powered by LIV Hydroscience for smart hydration. Visit liquidiv.com. Use the code MajorityRep at checkout for 20% off your first order. I don't want to share too much, but I will tell you, there's a weird dynamic. When I stay hydrated on days where I'm not doing the show, I'm not in the habit of drinking this. So like, once a week, maybe twice a week, I don't drink my Liquid IV. I sleep better when I have stayed hydrated throughout the day. And I find I have to get up and go to the bathroom less because my body, I think, gets trained to absorb water and all the sort of the minerals and vitamins. It's just, your body is whatever. I don't know. Whatever percentage, some massive percentage of water. You want to keep hydrated. You can explore the delicious sugar-free options, which include white peach, lemon lime, rainbow sherbet, and more. Like I say, also the raspberry lemon lime is also, and white peach are also some of the ones that I have in my regular rotation now. And you can find all their best-selling hydration multipliers flavors online. They have their newest flavor, Hydration Multiplier Arctic Raspberry. Plus, discover more fun flavors like cotton candy or popsicle firecracker. Just one stick plus 16 ounces of water. hydrates better than water alone. It's powered by LIV Hydroscience, again, which is an optimized ratio of electrolytes, essential vitamins, and clinically tested nutrients that turn ordinary water into extraordinary hydration. 3 times the electrolytes of the leading sports drink, 8 essential vitamins and nutrients, always non-GMO, vegan, gluten-free, dairy-free, and soy-free. Squeeze the most out of your summer with Liquid IV. Tear, pour, and live more. Go to liquidiv.com. Get 20% off your first order with the code MajorityRep. Not Majority Report, but MajorityRep at checkout. That's 20% off your first order with code MajorityRep at liquidiv.com. All right, quick break, and we'll be talking to Heather Parton, or as you may know her, Digby. We are back. Sam Seder on the Majority Report. Emma Vigeland out. She'll be back on Monday. Reminder, we are off tomorrow. It is July 4th. So joining us in what is sort of like a casual, non-really casual Thursday, Heather Parton or Digby. Matt?
Sorry, Brian's not ready to do it. Go to the soundboard, Brian.
Oh, it's Brian's fault. All right. Well, we can imagine the song. We don't want to play it on a non-Friday. Oh, there we go. Okay. There we go. Brian has gotten his sea legs now. So right now, as we speak, Hakeem Jeffries is in his 8th hour of his so-called magic minute, where the rule to vote on the bill has been passed at 3 in the morning or 3:30 in the morning, I think it was. And when he is done, they're going to vote on the bill. And on some level, it's like sort of a performative thing to, make it seem like the Democrats have put up a fight. And, there's definitely value in that. We're moving into the sort of the communication messaging stage of all this, although I want to talk to you about what kind of job the Democrats have done up to now. And then the other thing is, like, who knows? Maybe somebody goes out and gets a sandwich and they get run over by a bicycle and they've got to go to the hospital and they, just hurt their leg and can't vote or something like that. I mean, who knows what can happen, but very likely that this bill is going to pass. What's the first thing that comes to your mind about this situation?
Well, it's depressing as hell. I mean, we knew going in the minute that Donald Trump won the election and they won the majority that this was likely to happen. I never had any hope that whatever legislation they came up with was going to be anything but horrific, just judging by the people that they are. And the agenda of Project 2025 and the agenda of Donald Trump and let's face facts, the agenda of the Republican Party, which is essentially what we're seeing here. You can blame Donald Trump all you want, but and he's terrible, and there's a lot about the immigration policy that's in here, which is horrifying. That stems directly from him and Stephen Miller and the whole crowd around him and on immigration. But nonetheless, this is a Republican, wet dream, basically. The only thing missing is a big chance to take out Social Security. So they're going to have to save that for the next time because there's not going to be anything left to cut when they're done here. They've been wanting to go after Medicaid since the day it was enacted, and Medicare too, and they're taking a dive at that as well. In this, we talked about this last time, if you recall, that if they hit over this certain deficit level,
yep,
entirely possible they're going to hit that pay-go, and they're going to have to cut Medicare. And they'll just have to, I'm sure they'll just shrug their shoulders and say, hey, what can we do? This is the rules.
It's automatic.
We didn't have to take a vote. Yeah, we can't, nothing we can do about it. That's just how this works. Sorry, guys. And it's, it's an absolute nightmare. But think about this. This is what the Republicans have been wanting to do for as long as I can remember. And, people keep going on and on and on about how, this is such political suicide and why are they doing this? And this is terrible. Why would they take this chance? And, this is the new modern Republican Party, which is we're going to do everything we ever wanted to do and just tell everybody else to just pound sand. They don't care if the public doesn't like it. They don't care if their own voters don't like it because they're getting away with everything. And Mitch McConnell said it. He said it right out in the meeting. They're all going, well, what are we going to do? Our constituents, blah, blah, blah. And he said, they'll get over it. And he's probably right. People have, they're worried about, the price of eggs and they don't care. Now, I don't know if this is true about the upcoming election in 2026. I don't know if people remember then or what catastrophe will have happened in the meantime, but their own voters, the idea that they are going to have the information or be able to absorb the fact that this has been done to them by their own party, I think Mitch McConnell is onto something. I think they have been so, for lack of a better word, brainwashed that they'll accept whatever it is that the Republicans do and find a way to blame someone else. They certainly won't blame Trump. And so Republicans are getting everything that they can get all at once just because they know they can. And this is really, really a dangerous, dangerous moment. This is the moment that Grover Norquist, we all remember him, right?
Yes.
The guy who said, I just want to make government small enough so we can drag it to the bathroom and drown it in the bathtub. That's what he said. And that's where we're at. And in fact, he wrote a piece for Breitbart Daily Caller, I don't know, a couple weeks ago, saying this is what I was talking about. You get it in there, you get the deficit. And by the way, getting the deficits up is part of the plan, right? So you get it up so high that the economy really does get, endangered. You see this capital leaving and you see the dollar falling and the bond market having an earthquake. These are the kind of effects of a deficit, as Paul Krugman just said today. He sort of pointed out what the dynamic is. That when you get deficits up this high and you have a government that no one believes in anymore, that's when you have the problem. Because if people believe that a big, strong country like the United States, with its huge economy and very powerful, that even if they run high deficits, most people figure, hey, that, these are serious people. They're not going to tank the world economy. Well, nobody believes that anymore. So there's very possibly going to be serious ramifications from high deficits, which is exactly what Grover Norquist and his people want, because that's just another domino to fall, right? The economy is terrible. We have to cut. We've got to do all this stuff. And that's what they're looking for. It's what they've always been looking for. And that's not Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a dullard. He doesn't even know what he's, doing.
Wasn't Grover Norquist, prior to Trump's election, in addition to saying the drowning the bathtub, which I know was like back from the aughts, But the other quote, I think it was Grover Norquist, if I'm not mistaken, was, all I need is a president who can hold a pen.
Yes.
And
he said with working digits who can hold a pen.
He can hold a pen. And, you know, let's do first order things first. And that is recriminations. like
always the best to start with.
I mean, starting in the summer of 2016, you had Democratic leaders like Clinton, Chuck Schumer in particular, and Pelosi, who refused to tie the Republican Party to Donald Trump.
Right.
Like, I remember just my hair on fire in the fall of 2016 going, where is Mitch McConnell? Where is Paul Ryan? Like, they were able to hide as Donald Trump, and the Democrats have from the very beginning tried to make Donald Trump something other than a Republican, which was not only a bad idea, was not only sort of a delusion in keeping up like who the Republicans are, because it kept feeding this notion of like their fever's going to break. They're going to be something different. Like, they thought Donald Trump was some type of exogenous thing that came upon the Republicans, as opposed to the Republican Party moving in a direction where Donald Trump made absolute sense.
Absolutely.
And not only like by divorcing Donald Trump from the Republican Party, they made Donald Trump a anti-establishment outsider figure, when in fact he was going to fulfill everything that the Republican Party wanted, and more than they ever thought they could fulfill.
Yes. You are so right.
And so this has been a consistent, like, and they have not learned the James Carville, Chuck Schumer mentality of like, Donald Trump's going to do himself in. He's going to do himself in. He's going to do himself in. You know, like, and they just keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and refraining from tying the Republican Party and just saying we're running against Republicans. Right. This is a Republican bill. Mitt Romney would have done something very, very similar if he had the opportunity. The only difference is that Donald Trump has more popularity with their base than a Mitt Romney would have, and might not have been able. We might have had that same type of situation when we had with Obama, which is where you had the Freedom Caucus actually won't take yes for an answer. Right. But who knows, you know, because it's a different dynamic when the president is of your own party. But it seems to me the Democratic Party still fundamentally does not get this, or I should say the leadership does not get this idea that Donald Trump is a Republican, the Republicans are Donald Trump, and you cannot run against them separately, or you cannot like spare the entire party. As you say, Donald Trump is a MAGA, a super MAGA, max MAGA, you know, max right, whatever it is, whatever dumb thing that you think that this is somehow making Donald Trump alienated from Republican voters. They just got their tax cuts. That's all they care about. And they got rid of the Medicaid. That's all they care about.
That's right. No, you couldn't be more right about this. And it's always, I mean, it's irked both of us over the years from the very beginning when Donald Trump came on the scene. Because, you know, for one thing, it also lets their voters off the hook. I'm sorry, this whole idea about saying, well, you know, as soon as Donald Trump is gone, then, you know, all the good Republicans will be able to come back and we'll have a good, normal Republican Party again. I'm going, when was that? When did we have, you know, how long's it been since there was some kind of, you know, even the myth about, you know, how they went up to the White House during Watergate and told Nixon that he had to go and they were being very responsible. There's a little bullshit in that too. Because the truth is that there were a bunch of Southern Democrats also who were Nixon people. I mean, there's a whole complicated kind of backstory about that. That's not quite as clear and clean cut as everybody wants to think. The Republican Party has been full of, you know, jackasses since for, you know, well, probably forever, but it's just since it's bifurcated in, you know, where we've polarized into two tribes that, where they have very little in common and very little bipartisanship, that it's become more clear about what's going on. And the idea that somehow they're going to go back to being good stewards of the economy and people you can work with and good bipartisanship, well, let's just say that ship sailed a long time ago, and it had nothing to do with Donald Trump. It had much more to do with guys like Grover Norquist and those people from the Reagan era, those guys like Ralph Reed and Jack Abramoff, and the people that came up all the way, this is going back to the early 80s, where they were setting this up. That's the conservative movement.
John
that
Roberts.
We knew. John Roberts came right out of that group. And, this has been, and so now we're here where they've got the president with the working digits that can sign legislation, which is all Grover wanted, and he's got it because they've got someone in the White House who they can manage like a child, like a mad king, where you kind of, he got to give him some stuff, give him some things that he wants, and got to flatter him and do this, that, and the other. But come on, everybody, let's face it, he'll sign this big, beautiful bill. We'll even call it that to make him happy. And all this stuff that's in there. Because, yesterday there was a story, I think it was in Notice, saying, they've been sending these guys, these emissaries up from the Congress up to the White House so he can work them. And he's saying, well, if you touch Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security, you're not going to get reelected. You can't touch those. And one of the guys goes, but we're touching Medicaid. And he doesn't actually, in his mind, he's so into his own hype and his own, lies and delusions that he maybe has come to believe their story that, it's just a bunch of 25-year-old guys in the basement who are, they're being very scrupulous about getting their health care, and we've got to stop that so they can go out and get a job. This is the kind of thing that it makes it very easy for these guys to fulfill their long-held agenda. Nothing new about this. Cutting Medicaid to the bone is not new. I would even suggest that aside from the sort of autopsy that came out of 2012, you remember in the Republican Party, where they said, well, we've really got to do more to appeal to Latinos, and we've got to deal with immigration. We've got to be kinder and gentler, or whatever it was. That was an anomaly because
it lasted 5 minutes.
Yeah, it lasted 5 minutes, and Donald Trump proved that nobody cared about any of that. And this whole immigration thing, building a police state, definitely a Republican thing.
Mitt Romney, if I'm not mistaken, Mitt Romney's immigration advisor was Chris Kobach.
Yes.
And he was talking about self-deportation. This is not that dramatically different. Donald Trump may be more brusque and
cruder,
and he sells it probably better than Mitt Romney because Mitt Romney had a stiff jaw as he was delivering this stuff. But the policy apparatus, the theories are the same. We are on the verge of. Do we have this graphic? We'll put it up in a second. The ICE budget. This is the other thing.
Yeah.
There obviously $100 billion increase to annually to defense, but the ICE budget goes up to some crazy figure,
almost as much as defense that they've added. Incredible
in terms of the bump, and we're going to be hiring. Was it something like 10,000 new ICE agents?
It's going to be a bigger police force than the FBI. It's going to be more ICE agents than FBI agents.
Brian, do we have that graphic? Can you put that up? This is relative to other countries. You will see the defense budgets of a bunch of countries, and then you can see the what ICE budget is. It is. This is crazy. And, this isn't, there it is. It's $37.5 billion. It has a bigger budget than the defense budget for Italy, Israel, Netherlands, Brazil. I can't make out that last one down there, but
Switzerland.
It's Switzerland. Well, Switzerland. And this is we're going to see this everywhere. We're going to see ICE everywhere.
Everywhere.
And so
they're giving these thugs that are out there with the masks and, armed to the teeth like they're, storming Fallujah. They're giving them huge bonuses, like $50,000 bonuses.
I think it's a $10,000 bonus, a signing bonus.
Yeah. Well, I think they're giving, retention bonuses that are even more than that. This is police state stuff, and it's definitely happening. And by the way, a lot of this money is going to go to building more of those concentration camps like they just built down in Florida. And in fact, what was it Trump was saying? I'd like to see these in every state.
Yep.
So, I mean, this is, and you can tell, I hate to say this, but it's so true. He's got, Trump and Kristi Noem and Ron DeSantis were down there the other day. They were so aroused by this. I mean, you can just feel it, the excitement. They had Benny Johnson down there going, oh, look, they've got, concentration camp merch. He didn't say concentration camp, but, that's what he meant. And they're wearing hats and they're doing all this. I mean, it's so sick. There's nothing serious about what they're doing. It's like it's fun or something. And it's absolutely grotesque. And they're throwing money at it. And by the way, let's just talk about what the potential there is. The corruption you are going to see in this DHS budget is so beyond, and probably in the defense budget as well, because it's getting a huge bump. And they didn't need any more money, but apparently they're going to get it. And, do you think Pete Hegseth might be, getting a little something out of all this? Because I think he probably is. And I think that the people in DHS probably are. We already know that Kristi Noem's been grifting off of her dark money campaign stuff. This $50,000 Rolex that she wore down to El Salvador. I think it was ProPublica last week who traced the fact that she was taking she was taking a little extra for herself out of one of her dark money
outside expenditure.
One of her outside groups. So the potential for corruption and graft in this new DHS bill is beyond, because I think we're already seeing this. I think we may have talked about this last time I was on. All these they're detaining all these people at borders, coming in, Australians and Japanese people, Canadians, whatever. They're putting them into these detention centers. They're private prisons. They're being run by, private companies that are getting paid per person that is in there. There is a huge potential, and there's no oversight, zero. And I don't know who's going to look at it. So, I mean, the combination there of the financial incentive, the thrill of finally getting their dream come true. Here we are, we're on the verge of watching this thing happen. And, I think just like you, I trace it back to the fact that the Republican Party has been skating this entire time that Donald Trump has been in, and been allowed to not, take any of the responsibility for what has happened, and yet remain sort of, semi-respectable in the eyes of the public, mainly because I don't think Democrats, they always wanted to preserve this idea that the good Republicans will come back.
We need two parties. I mean, this has just been insanity, the way that they've been talking about this stuff. Like as if, I mean, even if you believed it, even if you believe that we need a Republican Party, to say it is just absolutely like, are you like you're Nancy Pelosi and or you're Chuck Schumer or you're Joe Biden, and you're out there, you're worried that if you don't say we need a good Republican Party, that they're going to go away. And what kind of magical thinking is going on in your head? It's just sort of, the absolute failure. And we just played a clip of Steve Scalise. We can play that other clip. Let's play that other clip that we have that is virtually identical. Brian, who was she on with? Did I put that in there? Maybe it was maybe I just watched it. Wolf Blitzer won with another, Republican. The whole argument about 34-year-old, playing video games in his mom's basement. He's going to have to go get a job. And we are keeping that guy from kicking out from Medicaid somebody who needs it. That's a lie. Medicaid is not a fixed number of people. It is you cross a threshold in terms of income, or you drop below a threshold of income, I should say. Or this notion that we're somehow saving it for the future, when of course all the cuts from Medicaid are going to fund tax cuts.
Right.
It's not like we're saving all this money and we're putting it back into some type of trust fund for the future, or reinvesting it in Medicaid. That's not what's happening here. And it feels like the Democrats have not had to been able to articulate get the message out to the public in the proper way. Getting distracted by things like Iran, he's going to make an Iran deal, or going on an anti-Semitism book tour. I mean, honestly, what the hell is going on with that? It is just so blinkered. And I just look, Mike Johnson is Speaker of the House because the Republicans kept kicking out their speakers. You and I saw 10 Republican speakers over the term that Nancy Pelosi was there. And Mitch McConnell was a longtime Republican Senate Majority Leader, probably one of the, from their perspective, the best maybe in the history of Republican Senate Majority Leaders, in terms of what he was able to achieve. But the idea that Democrats are so unwilling to challenge their leadership out of incompetence. Now, nobody thought that, Mike Johnson was going to be able to do this type of thing. Everybody thought that he was going to be a total incompetent. He very well may be, and it could just be a function of Donald Trump is enough to scare a lot of these people because their districts are so dominated by Trump. But there's a real failure here, and it just seems like over and over and over again, Democrats refuse to recognize it. And it's just a question of we got to get them out.
Well, do you see any evidence that that's happening? I mean, maybe. I don't see any.
You see David Hogg attempt to primary people from within the DNC. Yeah. I just had Randy Weingarten on yesterday, and then they weren't. She wasn't explicit about it, but there was a sense of we don't feel like there's enough churn going on here in the attitude of the Democratic Party. And so, I mean, there's nascent things, but it's all coming from outside of. Seems to be all coming from outside of the lawmakers. And it's like a failure to recognize that they're screwing up.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think one of the big fallacies in this, just, to go back just a little bit to what we were talking about, they seem to think that if they say things like, we need a Republican Party, we have to have one, that and I've never understood this, that will somehow persuade Republicans to vote for them. And I don't get it, because what they're actually saying is you need to stay in the Republican Party and keep voting. All you good Republicans, the good ones, not the MAGA, ultra MAGA people, all you good ones, stay in the Republican Party and keep voting for Republicans because we want you to make the Republican Party better. Well, how does that help? I mean, when you look at you see these things like this guy this Republican is it Nebraska, I guess, who just announced his retirement, Don Bacon.
Yeah.
And, he's in this basically a Democratic swing district, leans Democratic at worst. He knows that he's screwed with this bill and that he's probably going to lose anyway. So he, has announced his retirement. If that were to happen if it were the flip side, there would be a good chance that if he were a Democrat and he was in a Republican district that was, like that, a Republican, that he'd switch parties. That never happens anymore with Republicans switching to the Democratic Party. And yet it happens with some frequency going the other way. There was one, what's the guy is he up in New York or New Jersey? During Trump's first term that did it. It does happen. And if that were to happen, see that, this is where power becomes, a serious issue, that they could flip the House with a couple of defections, right? I mean, this could happen. Even the Senate's got, they've only got 3 votes.
This is because the Democrats maintain seniority in their committee assignments.
Well, that's a problem.
And the Republicans don't. And so they have more flexibility to say,
you're right.
We have a bonus for you. If you
we got something. Yeah, got something for you. No, you're absolutely right. That is part of the problem. And I don't think they try very hard to do that. I mean, I see no evidence of it. Maybe they do. And maybe it's not really that, that reasonable an assumption that anybody would want to. But I'm just saying that saying things like, well, we want the good Republicans, we need a good Republican Party, and doing all that does is give an incentive for people to keep voting Republican. And I don't understand what, and then the Democrats end up in these public opinion polls. People hate them more than they almost as much as they hate Trump, actually more in terms of, overall, loathing of politicians. The Democratic Party's reputation is absolutely in the dirt. And, this is something they're going to have to grapple with. And it has a lot to do with what you said. It has a lot to do with this idea that they seem so feckless and unwilling to, focus. And I think what you said about, them being, all over the place. In fact, you mentioned James Carville earlier. I saw him say something yesterday that kind of surprised me. He's been one of the worst, right? He goes on and he says, they just let the Republicans, they're digging their own grave.
Don't get in the way when your opponent's doing,
Exactly. Don't do it. Just be quiet and, tell everybody to shut up. Well, I can't remember what show he was on. It was probably on MSNBC. And they asked him, so what do you think of Zoran Mamdani, right? I mean, fine. Interesting question, and he surprised me a great deal. He said, I think he's on the right track. He talked about the economy, he talked about affordability, and that is what you have to do. And he said that before, right? And then put down, anybody who didn't do it. He says, you've got to talk about it's the economy, stupid, and kitchen table issues and all that. But for him to credit Zoran with that, which I wouldn't have expected, because I had just assumed he hated him and thought that he was, he was actually, I don't know if he had an epiphany somewhere that he needed to shut up about telling the younger generation to, go get lost. But he did say that, and he pointed out something that struck me when Zoran won, which is that he's doing what they're all telling them to do. He's keeping his eye on the prize: affordability, cost of living, the economy. He did that in a time when it would have been very easy for him to just completely dive headfirst into culture war issues. New York has, a million opportunities to, get all off into all of this stuff. He didn't do it. He kept his focus on it, mainly because he was listening to the people that he was, trying to get to vote for him, and that's what they were telling him. So, and I'm full disclosure, I've been very resistant to the whole kitchen table issue argument. I admit it, because I'm so overwhelmingly concerned with the death of our political system and democracy and, the police state and that stuff. And so that's my own bias. I'm a convert. I'm beginning to see the utility of this as maybe the only way to solve the problems that I'm most concerned with, is that people, the Democrats have got to focus. It's just what you said. This big, beautiful bill and what they're doing, they have not been effective yet. I mean, there's still time, because it was always going to pass, right? But there's still time for them to use this effectively as the way to get, people off the couch in the next election, to actually, make a real argument for what is wrong with the Republican Party. Donald Trump will not be on the ballot. They have to talk about the Republican Party, whether they like it or not, and they have to talk about those individuals. And this vote is going to be the way to do it, because it is the perfect illustration of everything that is wrong with the Republican Party, and they have to make that case and stop talking about how, well, there's some good people. Not one of them. I mean, who voted against it in the Senate? Susan Collins.
Oh, no, did she? Did Susan Collins vote against it? I don't think she did.
I thought she
No,
voted against it.
Was Rand Paul? Who was
Rand
it?
Paul.
Who else?
Rand Paul, yeah, because Murkowski voted for it. But I thought Collins did vote against it. It was Rand Paul, Tillis, and Collins.
I thought
that's right.
Oh, okay, I didn't realize Collins had two.
Yeah, well, she's up next time, and she's vulnerable. But
Right.
I think they hang it around her neck anyway.
Right.
You know.
Well, I mean, there's a reason why.
Yeah, that's why
they have the majority, and she's 25% of that. All you got to do is get rid of 4 Republicans.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of like, well, I mean, and we should also say Mamdani is also just a stellar candidate,
right?
But the material benefits, the challenge for Democrats, and why I think they will talk about, they will try, like you hear a lot of these people say, like, we should do, Tom Swazi, put out an op-ed, Mamdani is doing exactly what they all say they think should be done. But the problem is that the way they go about doing it, there is a very, and I don't know how subtle it is, but there is a somewhat subtle problem with trying to argue against Medicaid cuts, but arguing against any real mechanism to expand Medicaid to everybody.
Yes,
whether you call it Medicaid or Medicare or single payer or whatever it is, they're always having to thread a needle where they say, well, you should have this, but that's about it. And it's like, wait a second, the logic that says we're giving Medicaid to people who are at 140% poverty as opposed to 100% poverty, right? I mean, that's what the argument is at the end of the day with, they're cutting back on the ACA. They're also cutting back on like people getting subsidies in the ACA markets.
Oh yeah.
How do you say it just sounds completely arbitrary to say it should be only people up to this point should have health insurance that is, affordable or somewhat affordable. I mean,
it is arbitrary, isn't it?
It's arbitrary. They're trying to thread a needle. And so the Democrats are driving, not all of them, but many of them, and certainly within the context of the leadership, they're driving with the brakes on.
Mm-hmm.
And so they can never put the pedal to the metal because they also have their other foot on the brake. Mm-hmm. And that is the sort of ideological and rhetorical, in many instances, challenges they have. Now, the Republicans have their own challenges too, because they're trying to make it seem like they're not cutting their own voters' Medicaid, and they are. But they were smart about it because all of those cuts, for the most part, will hit after the midterm election.
Yes, yes.
The tax cuts go into effect almost immediately.
Mm-hmm.
The killing of the tax incentives for things like electric vehicles or putting solar panels on your roof or putting in a heat pump, which is the technology we need to go to, like a heat exchange pump, whether it's like geothermal or airflow. We need this technology. Mm-hmm. And you're going to kill a bunch of these businesses. You're going to kill a bunch of these businesses. You're going to also kill a bunch of people who are in the pipeline to be technicians of these things. I mean, it is so damaging to our economy long term and to our sustainability. I mean, it's just shocking. And the Democrats I don't ever believe they thought that this was going to pass. And I think they didn't think the budget resolution was going to pass. And then I thought they're like, well, a single bill won't pass because the parliamentarian's going to say, hey, you can't create a baseline that is that is on the current policy, that's ridiculous. It's absurd. You've got to create the baseline after the tax cuts run out. That's the way we've always done it. I mean, they're always like a step or two behind here. But I want to turn to just one more because we're backing up against 1 p.m. But this is really important, and you and I have seen this play before in some respects. Abrego Garcia has come back from CCOT, and he and his lawyer are basically saying like he was tortured, and not just him. Like all these people who are sent down there. Remember, something like 82. Like these people are not. Well, first off,
they're not criminals.
It doesn't matter if you're a criminal. No. We don't torture people.
No, right.
Supposedly. But regardless, we sent them to essentially what amounts to a torture chamber. The torture involved like, standing up or on the knee, the knees, and not being, and having them soil themselves, and lack of sleep, and all of it, torture. And here is here. Let's put up this tear sheet. Let's put up number 5. This is the description of some of the torture. You guys got that?
Yeah, we're pulling it up now.
Okay. And then I want to play this clip. This is, lost 31 pounds in his first 2 weeks. 31 pounds in 2 weeks. Aside from that being obviously a dangerous amount of weight to lose, how does that happen? Unless like you're being starved.
No calories at all. Yeah.
Of course. Yeah.
And I mean, it goes on and on. But here is Fox News contributor trying to justify this stuff. This is on the.
And if you're going to vote no on this, then you're voting along with. And if you're going to.
This is Monica Page from Charlie Kirk's outfit.
And if you're going to vote no on this, then you're voting along with Democrats, especially Democrats like Maxine Dexter, who was on the Hill today dressed in a white robe, who also visited El Salvador to go see Kilmar Abrego Garcia, who killed Americans. This is something that a lot of people are passionate about passing. If you're not siding with Republicans, then unfortunately you're siding with Democrats, anti-American.
Okay.
Just note for people watching, she got a cross necklace on there while she lies about him.
She said that Kilmar Abrego Garcia killed Americans. Kilmar Abrego Garcia is was never accused of killing Americans. He was accused of being in a truck with migrant workers who were going to a job site. And that has mutated into now killing Americans. Now, she put up an apology tweet. This is number 7. Tonight, during an interview on Fox News, I inadvertently said that Kilmar Abrego Garcia killed Americans. What I meant to say is that he's been connected with gang activity, and he has not been connected with gang activity, incidentally, that has devastated the lives of many people and killed an untold number of Americans. He's been connected with gang activity in the same way that I'm connected with gang activity, in that it exists in the same planet that it does that I'm on.
I watch Boys in the Hood, so I'm connected too.
There you go.
Yeah,
obviously promoting the gang lifestyle, exactly. Heather. It's pretty clear.
Yeah.
But you made a really good point about the sort of like, this is not America. Well, I don't know.
No, not really. I mean, look, when this story came out last night, I was on social media and I was on X and on Blue Sky, and they were talking about, people were going, this cannot stand. People must be held accountable for this. This is America. We don't do that. And I'm going, guys, hate to remind you, but yeah, we do. And we have done. And it's not going back centuries. This was just back in the 2000s. We had CIA black sites. We were abducting people off the streets and sending them to foreign countries where they were tortured. That happened. That was called rendition. We had Guantanamo Bay, where
Which
they
we
were
are
also
using again
tortured,
in
which
this
we are
very
still,
context.
we're using it in this very context. And it was shown over the course of many very, very difficult investigations that we tortured the hell out of people. I mean, we really did it. Waterboarding and this sleep deprivation. They did all kinds, I mean, just horrible force feeding with people who went on hunger strikes. They did, forced enemas. It was an absolute nightmare, and no one was ever held accountable for that. There were a couple of grunts at Abu Ghraib in Iraq who stupidly took pictures of themselves and ended up causing a big scandal. But honestly, this was never ever properly adjudicated in any way. And in fact, once again, let's talk about the Democrats, because they, Dianne Feinstein, for all of her ills, she did one good thing in her career. Yeah, she did a couple of good things, but this one was actually really good. She was the one who headed that torture investigation in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and she tried to get that information out. It was a thorough investigation. It showed everything, and they ended up with the Obama administration ended up killing it.
Yep.
And they did it. They did some kind of trick. It was sort of a formality where you'd send it to the White House, and if they didn't open it, it meant that it hadn't been delivered. And so as a result, it was never made public. They made public the summary that was done in the beginning, but none of the details. And they made a movie about it with Annette Bening was in it. Adam Driver was in it it was called the investigation, I think, or the report or something. But in any case, this actually happened. We did this. We did it. No one ever paid a price. George W. Bush is out there. He and Michelle Obama are changing,
And
changing
Wu
candy.
is a professor at Stanford.
A professor at Berkeley, I think.
Berkeley.
Yeah,
Berkeley.
And these guys are all out there. They're getting a few little grunts from Abu Ghraib got had to do some time in the brig or whatever, but that was it. And so anybody who thinks, and this is my big concern here, we're building concentration camps, and that's what they should be called, because that's what they are. They're not death camps yet. They're not, termination camps or whatever. They're concentration camps. We're concentrating people that have been grabbed off the streets, that are awaiting some kind of adjudication, supposedly, and they're being thrown in there with very little communication with anybody. Nobody knows what the treatment is. We're hearing stories from all over the place. I live in Los Angeles, so let me tell you something. This is a city under siege by ICE. It is under siege. People are terrified. They're afraid to go to work. And this is, these Latinos, American citizens, are walking around carrying their passports.
Yep.
In California now, because they're terrified of being grabbed up off the streets. And once you start that, you build concentration camps, you better bet they're going to be doing that CCOT stuff, because we've done it before.
DOJ is already starting to ramp up their investigations on denaturalizing citizens.
Yes.
I mean, This is I hope people see how the way this works. When we talk about a canary in the coal mine, it is because that there is a problem that is escalating, and they start with the most marginalized people, and then they work their way up.
Yeah.
And who's a naturalized citizen? Zohran Mamdani.
Mm-hmm. And they're talking about. They asked Trump about it down in he was visiting the concentration camp with Ron DeSantis. And he said, "Yeah, we ought to arrest him." And they said, "Well, what about deportation?" It was Benny Johnson who asked him about it, by the way. You get asked, what about they're talking about? And he said, "Well, I hear people are saying he may be here illegally."
The people should also understand that the way that this is utilized is they talk about Zohran Mamdani, and then the idea that they're just going to do, Jim Stevens becomes not as dramatic.
Yeah.
And so, this is just their way of expanding essentially the Overton window. I don't know, it's an overused phrase in some ways, but that's what it is.
That's how this works. And, if you build it, they will use it.
Yep.
That this is just what's happening. We're building this national police force. It is, and it is populated by people who run around with masks on, carrying heavy, military style weapons, dressed like they're going to a Call of Duty cosplay convention, and they run around. Nobody knows who they are. It could be anybody. They don't even there are people who literally have been disappeared off the streets of Los Angeles. It's a local story of this woman was taken, and there's no record of her being put into any of these detention centers, but there are all these stories of what they're calling bounty hunters.
Yep.
Of people, grabbing them, then claiming, because there's this self-deportation money apparently, where you can get $1,000 or whatever, grabbing people, getting their money, and then sending them over the border. I mean, just weird stuff like that is happening because there's no oversight. There's nothing. Nobody can do anything about it. It's just happening. And, they're going to build more of these concentration camps. They're going to be giving bonuses to these guys, hiring, imagine the vetting that's going to be done in DHS when they're hiring. I mean, imagine who they're going to be hiring. Probably every one of them will be pardoned January 6th, insurrectionists. And they're going to be, the amount of money that's going to be going into this. And you can just imagine. And of course, it's going to lead to abuse. Of course, it's going to lead to torture. Of course, it's there's no way it's not. How could that not happen? And so, this is something we're watching it unfold, and we're watching this bill being debated. And everybody, we're all sitting there, Hakeem is out there, just talking away. Good for him, saying something. But my God, I feel like people are saying, well, it's a little hysterical, Heather. You really calm down a little bit. It's not that bad. I'm like, well, not maybe.
Yeah, I mean, this is not a static thing, too.
No, you can go to Whole Foods today.
It is moving in a direction, and it is not slowing down.
It's terrifying.
Heather Digby Parton, always a pleasure to have you. We will link, of course, to the Uber blog, Hullabaloo.
Thank you.
And your pieces in salon.com. Everybody should be reading you. You have been a foundation of my reading for 20 years, 21 years
20
now, more
years.
actually prior to even me doing this professionally. I would see, as Digby said on, as Digby says on Atrios's blog, Eschaton. Appreciate you coming on. We'll talk to you again soon.
My pleasure. Yeah. Have a good weekend. Get some rest. We're going to need it. It's going to be a long, hot summer, people. Hate to say it.
Yep. All right. Thanks, Heather. All right, folks. We're going to head into the fun half. Right? Is that the way we do it on a Thursday?
That's
right. We're going to be welcoming to the show, as you know, folks who are here on Thursdays, more than me. Brandon Sutton and Matt Binder are going to be here. Do we bring them on prior to the fun half?
Yeah, I'll do a little bit of plugging. So let me get
Brandon great
up here. And Binder,
Brandon, great to see you. It's been a while.
It's been a while, yes. Great to see you as well.
All I end up seeing of you is like, cookies, Scandinavian cookies that you leave in the office, and I end up being the one who eats all of them in one sitting.
Yeah, like some sort of like fairy type creature. I just leave little treats around your studio.
Yes, but it's like an evil fairy. Let's not get to, because I don't have any control around sugar, as it were. Tell us, how is the discourse going?
It's going great. Every morning, usually I stream right before the Majority Report from 9 to around 12 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow, I think I'll be doing a special 4th of July show where we dive into some of the more American-centric conspiracy theories, maybe some sovereign citizens, maybe some QAnon, maybe JFK is still alive. Who knows? But you'll have to tune in to find out.
All right. Well, I mean, it's all feels like it's all becoming real. So
funny if JFK is still alive, he just doesn't want to talk to Bobby.
Oh,
exactly.
I can see that.
He's too embarrassed to. He was planning to come out as JFK, but now he's too embarrassed. And look who's here. New dad. I mean, thrice over.
Right.
New three child dad, Matt Binder, host of Scam Economy and Doomed and Substack, The Disruptionist.
Yep.
How's it going? You get any sleep?
It's going good. It depends on the night. Some nights we get sleep, some nights we don't. That's just, you know how it is.
Are you guys done? Or like, what's going on here?
I don't know. I think so. Maybe. Who knows?
It's like the Waltons at your house now.
Right. Yes, we got a lot of kids running around, and we got a dog and a cat. You know, whole shebang.
Like a sitcom.
What are you working on these days? I mean, I can't imagine you have much to work with on Scam Economy.
Right now, I mean, honestly,
for that matter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's been, I've had to take I still stream every week, youtube.com/Matt Binder, but I gotta get back into the swing of things with the kid and everything.
Yeah.
So, youtube.com/Matt Binder, that swing of things will be back very soon. So follow me subscribe to the YouTube channel, disruptionist.com, like Sam said, for the newsletter. That's going to officially launch very soon too. I just been throwing some breaking scoops that I've got over the past couple of weeks on there. But that's my goal.
We should say you also write for
thing.
Mashable, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
all right.
So check me out there.
Well, folks, just a reminder, you can support this program by becoming a member at jointhemajority.report.com. When you do, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also get the fun half, and you can IM us. And don't forget justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or fair trade coffee and hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Matt, Left Reckoning.
Left Reckoning, Ashik Siddiqui of DSA talking about Zoran's victory, and we also talk about Colin Allred, his uninspired, just run it back campaign for Texas Senate. So check that out.
His weight during the...
a lot of people are going to make some money on that campaign, so congrats to them. Patreon.com/Left Reckoning. We'll have another Sunday show for patrons this Sunday.
That's Borda on the IM said Sam Seder looks really old next to these other guys. Well, that's because I'm like 20 years older than both of them, at least.
I disagree. I think you look great, Sam. I'm always hearing
I don't
from
think
people that you look great.
Yeah,
and I was up all night.
All right. You don't look old.
Like
I don't know what they're talking about.
It's like Billy Madison too over here.
Let me put the filter on. All right, we'll see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What? What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomiki.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false. No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm going to go Starlight.
Libertarians.
They're so stupid, though.
Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210.
35.
501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400. $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes to satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder. Thursday, fun half. Emma Vigeland out on her honeymoon. She'll be back on Monday. I'm here, of course, with Brandon Sutton of The Discourse, Matt Binder of Doomed, and Scam Economy, and soon to be launched, just like nascent Disruptionist. It's sort of like our Friday because we are off tomorrow. Guys, I don't know. I don't think the vote has taken place yet.
No.
Hakeem's still speaking.
He's still talking.
8 hours, 30 minutes.
I'm not sure what else there is to say, but I want to hear, from both your perspectives. Brandon, let's start with you. Like, what is your big takeaway? Let's, for the moment, assume that this is going to pass, because I think there's certainly all indications. If it doesn't, like at this point, it makes Mike Johnson look like a guy who can't count, literally, unless somebody gets hit by a bus on the way back from lunch. But what's your take on this?
Well, I mean, maybe Hakeem Jeffries' 8-hour-long speech will appeal to the better nature of a few of the Republicans in the House. But assuming that doesn't happen, right? Assuming, like you said, that it passes, my takeaway is that I think we already see a lot of Republicans at various levels in sort of like a ass covering mode. We see people trying to get the kind of carve outs that they're going to need to sell this to their districts, which, as we know, Republican districts tend to over index for people who are on a lot of these programs. Unfortunately, though, in a lot of states, Medicaid is just not called Medicaid. A lot of these programs
put
that
up
they
this
rely
quote.
on.
That's a very good point. This is something that I don't think people realize. It's not called Medicaid in any of these states. Put up this is a graph number 3.
Okay, one second.
Or not graph.
Yeah, because a lot of states, every state takes in the money from the federal government and at one level or another is responsible for administering Medicaid through a variety of differently named agencies and institutions. And so a lot of people who are on Medicaid currently don't understand that they are on Medicaid, but likely many of them will notice that things are changing, maybe not immediately, because we know that the Republicans have built in various, delays and various timelines into this big, beautiful bill to distance themselves from the consequences of this policy. But I do still think that they're preparing for a bloodbath coming into the midterms. They're preparing for, perhaps a flipping of the House, if not the Senate. And so, I don't know what Hakeem Jeffries imagines that he's doing. I think this is his moment to position himself as the party leader. He's doing that symbolically by getting up there. But for me, I was watching the speech for a very long time this morning since it started, and no energy, very drowsy. I think Hakeem is the wrong guy for this moment, personally, but I think ultimately it's going to pass. And so we're just going to have to deal with the aftermath of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true, and I think just a reminder: the cuts to both SNAP and to Medicaid and ultimately Medicare are not going to happen until after the midterm elections. So it really is going to be about messaging, because people are not going to experience it prior to the midterm elections. Now, the polling shows that I think like even something like 20% of people think that it's going to hurt them directly. 60% of people are aware of what's in the bill, or at least they think they are, and maybe another 17% off the top of my head think they know very well what's in that bill. So there has to be a lot of education that happens about something that is going to happen in the future. It's going to be difficult, isn't it, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you do. A lot of people think this is going to hurt Republicans in the midterms, but if people aren't feeling it, I mean, we've seen in these past couple of months that even when people feel the pain of this administration, of the Trump administration, that doesn't sometimes that doesn't change their mind either. These stories of like people who've had their like family members, their significant other deported, or picked up by ICE at the very least, and they're like, "Oh, I trust Trump to handle this." It's amazing. Well, people, I don't know what to say for some people. Some people just don't realize or don't care that these things affect them. I don't know, and I feel like that's going to be a tough sell with people not feeling, because I do think there's enough people that will feel the pain and think differently about things, but when you have a voting base or a constituency like we have right now, where people are feeling pain and just brushing it off or shrugging their shoulders, it certainly doesn't look good in terms of any chance to turn this boat around. Now, I will say that I do think that when the Democrats are in power, like they can't just do what they did last time and like move on and let bygones be bygones. Like there needs to be like literally like trials and punishment for people who are just kidnapping people off the streets and doing all these things that the Trump administration are putting forward. And, I don't trust they're going to do that, but I mean, we're just going to go on and on forever like this if there isn't some sort of consequence for these things.
I think that, look, I think the nature of an off-year election is that there's every reason to believe that, just sort of generically speaking, Democrats are going to take control of the House. I mean, it's a three-person delta between the Republicans and the Democrats, and traditionally the party out of power wins in this thing. And then also on top of that, people come out to vote against Trump. I mean, and certainly, you see it in special elections and whatnot. But what they do once they get in there, and the one thing that they can do is have hearings. And I would like to see them pull up every single ICE agent, like literally one by one. So you want to wear a mask on the streets, you don't wear it in this, and literally, publicly shame these people, and mark them for what they're going to be doing and what they've done up to this point. I don't know what else, what other things, their capacity is, but there better be robust congressional investigations, and nobody should be chairing any of these committees who is over the age of 68. I'm sorry. That's just like in these House committees. I want young, vibrant. I do not want a Dianne Feinstein who is, telling Lindsey Graham, this is the best I've ever, committee hearing I've ever been in.
You don't want.
Now
You don't
that
want
you
them to
mentioned it, they might dig her up and wheel her out.
Well, you don't want. They could like a Ouija board. They could bring in like a spirit medium to have her chair the committee. But to your point, Sam, I think that's always been a really big danger of Trump that goes understated. That like the Republican Party will be allowed to exceptionalize Trump and hold him as something that is separate from them. That this is Trump's spending bill. It's Trump's big beautiful bill. Obviously, the branding of it helps accentuate.
Oh, you're not allowed to call a big beautiful bill because Chuck Schumer got it taken out. Nobody's calling it that anymore.
That's like
But yeah, I mean,
4D chess
of course.
strategery right there, right?
Yep.
Oh, Trump's so connected to his bill by name. He's constantly touting it's his bill by name. So what are we going to do? We're going to change the name.
but Brandon, your point is right on the mark. And in fact, I would say that Kamala Harris even went a step further by handing them on a platter their ability to differentiate themselves from Trump. Like, he's the MAGA. I'm with the Republicans. Look, I've got Lynn Cheney right here, or Liz Cheney. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to make this like false dichotomy between like Trump and the Republican Party because they rely on both of them as foils to replace actual policy objectives, actual sweeping structural changes to policy that would help insulate us from these sorts of things, not just in terms of financially, economically, but having these robust systems and people used to them would make it harder for the Republican Party to advocate for cutting them essentially. But like there is a level that the Democratic Party operates on where they are also neoliberal. So they just have such a hard time advocating for the public sector in ways that are genuine and actually expand them, and not just, what Hakeem Jeffries is doing right now, which is giving individual anecdotes about people on the House floor that, may or may not resonate with you. Maybe you're not watching. I know I turned it off, but like they don't actually like make these changes that expand them in such a way that people have or can say they touch their lives in a way that it's hard to deny, whether it's named something or not named something that they recognize.
Yeah, I mean, I think the for Jeffries, the big thing is, just popped up on a headline, Jeffries breaks the House record for longest floor speech.
Oh my
I mean, okay, great. And I guess there's some value in the sense that it sort of like, I mean, look, in a midterm election, the key is bringing out all of your stalwart base and expanding on that base within the Democratic Party, right? You're not going to have Republicans vote for the Democrat. You need to get all the Democrats out there, and you're going to win because they're just going to be more motivated. So this is, this stuff is geared towards that. But I think the problems have existed for 8 years, 10 years now, and it's very hard to sort of do anything this late in the game. And frankly, I have not seen anybody, like, the Democrats are just sort of relying on this notion of they're cutting Medicaid. And yes, they are cutting Medicaid, but they're not going out and engaging with the arguments that the Republicans are making because, like you say, if I'm living in Kentucky, I don't know Medicaid. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm on Kentucky Connect or whatever it is. I'm not on Medicaid. I'm on Medi-Cal, or I'm on, Arkansas Aid or whatever it is. Like, people don't know because, they're normal.
Well, I mean, but also there's been a total, ideologically speaking, devaluation of the public sector. People have been taught over the past 50, 60 years that there's nothing that the public sector can do right, that the private sector can do, that can't do better, right? And the public sector, especially because our politicians are mostly neoliberal, just don't have the kinds of advocates that can, go up against private sector, commercials, lobbyists, people who are like constantly out there advocating for the expansion of their ability, the private sector's ability to enter into markets that they don't necessarily have, any business being in my opinion, but certainly don't have any business being the only game in town with no alternative provided by the government. And so like a lot of times people just don't know how to recognize what is a government service. They don't understand like the government builds roads. They don't know like where anything comes from. And it makes it very easy to problematize or selectively problematize things that work great, that like are serving them fine, only for them to realize once it's gone and, maybe misattribute it to like the inefficiencies of the public sector as opposed to like the just total like austerity politics that have gripped both parties.
Yep. Meanwhile, I think, Matt, you made this point. We got a clip of ICE agents at the Federal Plaza Immigration Court. This is in where is this in Brian? Is in New York?
Yeah, New York. Plaza.
And we're seeing this more and more. We're going to see tens of billions of dollars flood into ICE. And we're going to be seeing this all the time. They're very upset about people downloading Ice Block, which is an app called Ice Block on all platforms that you can download and just post when you see ICE people. And apparently it allows people to see that you've spotted ICE in certain areas. But
I'm sorry, Sam. What was that app again? I want to make sure I don't download
Ice
it.
Block,
Okay.
it was called.
Okay.
Here is a clip of just what took place yesterday.
No.
Sir,
todos.
let's go.
Todos.
Sir.
Todos nos vamos.
We're not doing this.
Todos nos vamos.
We're not doing this.
Todos nos vamos. Todos. No somos delincuentes, no somos nada. Todos nos vamos.
Have a little discretion.
No hay ningún problema.
I think this would be a really discretionary moment
seems like
where
a
you
moment
can let
for
them
discretion,
go.
right?
If there's
No entiendo por qué lo están haciendo, pero todos somos familia y nos vamos todos.
There's three
No hay problema.
Si van a deportar, todos.
Entonces ahora no vamos con eso, ¿ok?
Sí, tengo que no soy, porque yo no soy. Ok, está bien, yo no soy. Ok, está bien. Ok, ¿sí o no? Sí tengo, pero yo no soy ese que está ahí. Yo no soy. No.
Se llama Dani.
Danny.
Nada, no hay ningún problema, no se preocupe.
Tengo mis niños.
That's all we need to know is your name. That's it. Okay?
Ya, no
We just needed to know your
problema.
name and that's it, okay? Give some space. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Pero yo tengo que
Stay out of the way, sir. Stay out of the way.
Thank you.
Pero ¿por qué te pones así? No hacemos nada, no te pongas así.
Press the elevator down for me, please.
No te pongas así. Tú no eres delincuente, nosotros no somos delincuentes, no te pongas así.
Tranquilo.
Ya tenemos los niños aquí, no ha pasado nada, que sea lo que Dios quiera, siempre lo he dicho. No somos delincuentes, no tenemos antecedentes, nada. Ellos no pueden culparnos de nada.
Okay, usted está bien.
Ya no ha pasado nada.
Thank you. No, it's okay. Thank you. Pasa. Thank you. Go down.
¿Qué tienes para cuando no eres delincuente? Tienes que ponerte así. No te tienes que poner así.
All right, just so we're clear on what's going on here, that's the wrong guy. They were that was the wrong guy. This is what ICE is doing here. They're terrorizing families. I mean, I don't know what the right guy would be, but this type of stuff, I mean, it is, this is where it starts, right? I mean, this is not a static proposition. They're going to move from people who they claimed were criminals. Then they moved to people who are working, and then they moved to people who naturalized citizens. And then they start saying, well, citizens who are criminals, we're also going to deport. I mean, that's the trajectory that's there.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's a significant portion of Trump's base, and I'm sure people within the Trump administration too, absolutely within the Trump administration with power, who will see this video and say, I see what they look like, I hear what they're speaking, and I think I should have taken them in.
Absolutely. And so, first of all, to your point, Sam, absolutely. This is exactly what they want, not just for undocumented immigrants in this country, not just for Latinos, not just for brown people. They want this level of terrorism afflicted on every single citizen. Maybe not tomorrow, but very soon, likely as a result of the waning material conditions that are making people side with Trump's ICE right now. Because to your point, Matt, like this is just outright terrorism. But the terrorism is the point in this case, because a lot of people in this country, I mean the United States of America, have been taught to like mediate their waning social and material comfort with the influx of undesirable populations, Black and brown people, women, trans people, into spaces that they don't feel like they belong in for one reason or another, largely because it makes them feel less socially valuable. But they map a lot of things onto that. So despite the fact that the Trump administration, just by nature of being who they are so much less effective at operating this deportation regime, like this kind of visible terror is exactly what a portion of his base wants to see, because it makes them feel as though something is actually happening that's going to improve their lives, or at least make them feel better. Because the reality is, like, there is no migrant crisis the way that they've described it. There aren't 300 million undocumented migrants or 20 million undocumented migrants coming across the border every day. So there's functionally no way to actually deport any real number of undocumented migrants to make a dent in what people claim to be experiencing in their day-to-day life. I don't know what that exactly is, besides like maybe you have to hear someone speak Spanish once in a while. But the terrorism is the substitute. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's literally the what they're saying. Like, I don't know if you guys saw that Laura Loomer tweet yesterday, and Laura Loomer isn't just some fringe figure on the right anymore. She's flying in private planes.
Got fired. Half of the national security apparatus. She got fired.
She tweeted yesterday a joke about how the alligator Alcatraz, which is what they're calling the Florida concentration camp. The alligators will have 65.5 million meals, she said. Now, 65.5 million isn't a number of undocumented immigrants in this country. It's actually the number of the Latino demographic in this country. So she's basically given up the game here of what exactly they view as people who shouldn't be here.
Yep. I mean, it's grotesque, and it's coming. It's just a question of how fast and how much time will they have to go about this. But you're building an apparatus that is going to exist. Like, once this thing is built, it is going to be very, very, very difficult to dismantle. And it's not like, this cuts both ways in some respects. If you had an agency like the EPA, for instance, which was functioning to do things to protect the agency, when the political appointees come in, it takes them a while to inhibit the work of those people who want to protect the agency. And there's a lot more control over them. I'm just talking about 4 years down the line, regardless of who's going to be president, if it's a Democrat, they're going to come in and this apparatus of ICE is going to exist. And there is no sort of like control mechanisms to say, like, as they're going around, I mean, except for the federal judges, maybe, there's no mechanism to stop these people from doing this. This is going to be real. It's going to exist. And it's not just a switch that you can turn off. And, like you say, these people, the people who are working for ICE right now are not the best, the best and brightest. They're about the thuggiest it gets. They're not controlled by any type of like legal apparatus in many respects. And they've usually been unable to get into police force, any type of police force, whether federal or local. And now you're looking for an extra 10,000 of these guys. I mean, it is,
they're going to clone Kyle Rittenhouse 10,000 times.
No kidding. No kidding.
No, I mean, it's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And these apparatuses are being built to like facilitate a total, like, police state in the United States of America. They're already trying to muddy the waters around what makes someone a citizen, what makes someone able to have their citizenship stripped away, what makes someone a terrorist. The immigration crisis has always been a vector by which the war on terror was going to be imported home and used on American citizens. And the racialized element of the way in which people think about what an immigrant is just facilitates them passing these laws only for people to realize, like, oh, immigrants can look like anything, because there are countries where people are white, there are countries where people are black, and every so often there's a story in the newspaper where people find out that, oh, ICE is going after Irish immigrants in Boston, or undocumented Irish people, and they go like, oh, that's right, there's nothing visibly that separates an American from a non-American. And then, like, once you're in the system, like, who's to say what happened to you?
A white Canadian Trump supporter just died in ICE custody the other day. So, I mean, yeah.
Yep. I want to just shift here. As you guys probably heard, Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic nomination for mayor last week. I'm not sure.
Wow. News
you
to
guys
me.
were up on that. This is pretty fascinating because I don't know, Matt, if you remember this. back in the day. Do you remember Indy Mike? Remember
Sounds
those
familiar.
debates with that Indy Mike guy? I think we even had him on the show one time. And he was a guy who was sort of like on an email thread with me with other friends.
Oh, okay, I remember. Okay, I remember Indy Mike now. Yes.
Okay. And Indy Mike would get his news from both sides. He would get it both from, on one hand, Laura Ingraham, and on the other hand, Brett Baer.
Right.
And so, and we would have arguments offline about Israel. And I remember distinctly telling him, like, look, I don't know if it's going to be 10 years, it's going to be 15 years or 20 years, but there's going to be a problem because the Democratic Party for Israel, the Democratic Party is going to move away. And when a Democrat gets in at one point, we're going to see them cut off aid to Israel because of the way, and your support for Israel's behavior is the greatest threat to its existence. This was my sort of jujitsu argument at that time. Obviously, Joe Biden, not that guy.
Right.
10 years later. However, the Democratic Party, in terms of voters, has changed dramatically. And what I found fascinating about this clip is that A, we do not see this polling very often. B, it has real implications for Harris's loss that I think are not being reckoned with. And C, the fact that they introduced this as a Mamdani phenomena is fascinating to me because they cannot deal with this head on. I mean, the way they tiptoe around this, it's fascinating. Here is Harry Anton and Kate Bolduan on CNN News.
Andrew Cuomo, during the primary, attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at the sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh, my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism. That is for sure.
Pause it for a second.
On this,
excuse me, what?
Enough against
like what? Mamdani has also said virtually nothing about how many flavors of ice cream we should have. I mean,
right?
There is undoubtedly, and there has always been, anti-Semitism. A portion of the Israeli critique has always been motivated by anti-Semitism, but there is absolutely no reason to believe that Democrats have become 56% more anti-Semitic in the past 8 years. There's absolutely no reason to believe, frankly, that anti-Semitism has become has changed in its relative to the critique of Israel.
Right.
I mean, and I would even argue that there is not even like, the so-called America first. Like, I don't think that has changed at all. The dynamic that's changed is that there is more accessible information to the general public as to, over the past 8 to 10 years, as to the actions of the Israeli government and to the plight of the Palestinian people, both an awareness of the Nakba, both an awareness of the founding of Israel. All of these things have come to light more dramatically, but they've got to tiptoe around it.
I think it's even more simple than that. People are inundated in the past 2 years with these videos of what Israel is doing to the people in Gaza. I have seen more videos of mangled children than I could have ever imagined I would ever see. It really like destroys your like mental health as you see this stuff. It will immediately turn you against whoever is perpetrating this stuff. And then to see the whole, sort of government apparatus, your own government, siding with the people doing this to the children you're seeing in these videos, and it outrages you more than you could imagine. Like like Sam said, there'll always be these far right fringes that glom onto the Israel issue to basically like hide their anti-Semitism. But they are now like such a small portion of the overall population because so many people are now anti the Israeli government and Netanyahu's government because of what they've seen. And it's just that simple. Like, and yes, when you go down that line and you see these videos, there's a portion of that electorate who is going to dig a little bit further and find out about the Nakba and the of the Israel and Palestine conflict, but you don't even need people to dig.
No,
people are just so.
And what's also
tired of these videos
in terms of the analysis here too, which fascinates me, it is put in the sense that Cuomo's attacks were not effective against Mamdani, but there was a massive election that took place 10 months ago, 8 months ago, 9 months ago, where the Democratic candidate would not even allow a Palestinian speaker to speak at the DNC. And that is shocking. When you look at these numbers, which the Democratic, the people running Harris's campaign, now maybe they have increased over the past 8 months, over the course, those are not, that's a change that took place over 8 years. And maybe all of that increases happen, all of that change, that 56% swing changed in 8 months, but I don't think so. I think that you could see the trend, and it was just strictly on a political level, total malpractice by the Harris campaign.
Well, just a few things to that point. And I also just want to say, I think the cultural circumstances for shift in a position on Israel was also set, just by the changing standards. Like there's a lot less strong feelings of evangelical Christianity within our society. From just 20, 30 years ago, there was just a lot more of that like diffused into our society.
Oh, the Christian Zionists are there. It's just that we have become polarized from them. This is just Democrats.
No, I'm just saying, like, even before there were a lot more Christian, like Zionism and Christian evangelicalism just diffused throughout our society before, like 20, 30 years ago. A lot of the people who are shifting these positions are just younger. Not only are they just like not growing up in the same society that has like, a lot of secularized Christian dogma in it, but this is all people who are growing up in the aftermath of one failed war in the Middle East, like the Iraq War, and like the negative feelings surrounding the invasion of Iraq, the negative feelings surrounding like being lied into that, I think has colored how a lot of people view this current conflict in a way that like makes them more skeptical of those positions. And for the Harris campaign.
Okay, watch the rest of this clip where they try to attribute it to young people, but all Democrats, 56% swing, and they try to attribute it to young people. My guess is if you look on the Republican side, the support for Israel has gone up as it has become more of a Christian side. Kufi is a bigger organization, at least in terms of membership by far, than AIPAC. But look at this, watch this video.
Anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party, and so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathized more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is Mondani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed
Pause it for 1
tremendously
second.
on
Just
this issue in
the idea of saying younger Democrats and go to age 49.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Really?
I mean, to be
What are we talking
fair,
about?
I do think when talking about elections, that is considered to be young voters.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
30 to 50 is not considered a young voter.
That's regular age.
I mean, it is a sleight of hand. Let's put it this way: if they could find that 70 point swing between 18 and 35, they would have shown it.
Right.
That swing has taken place from 35 to 60 almost, or to 50 as well. I mean, so understand what's going on here. They are trying to make this as if it is not a broad-based reaction by the Democrats. There is no doubt in my mind that a 65-year-old or a 70-year-old or an 80-year-old or an 85-year-old Democrat have not moved off their vision of Israel from when, Paul Newman played, was in Exodus. But because I know these people, but the fact of the matter is, when you're talking about below 50, we're not just talking about young people here.
It's 45-year-olds getting confused by TikTok.
Exactly. I mean, that's the implication, right? That it's just like, this is like Instagram. This is some type of social media.
I think I just appreciate still being considered a young voter.
Yes.
Yeah, at 36, I appreciate it. I have 13 more years.
I think that your point is the more important one from this data, which is that probably only the plus 65 people, like those boomer age people who grew up in that media landscape where this was a lot less information, a lot more Christian Zionism just diffused, like the 700 Club is on every channel or whatever. Like they're the only ones in the Democratic Party who feel strongly pro-Israel, and everyone else is shifting.
Yep. Let's just continue to play this clip.
Years. So the bottom line is Mondani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mondani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Again, the idea that they're not bringing this up in the context of the 2024 election is pretty stunning.
We got the under 90 voters like Bernie Sanders pulling that number down.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you say, Sam, it's been a regular point of conversation that this is not sustainable given the Democratic Party's base. It's actually pretty imaginable. You imagined it to Indy Mike.
Yep. I mean, it was quite clear what was going on when you have Tim Kaine, boycotting Netanyahu's talk in the Senate, then there's something afoot. All right, let's I'm going to read a couple items, but then we're going to get into some fun stuff. 2 kids in a trench coat. I can't help but feel Michael is somewhere seeing Sam comment on Emma being gone on her honeymoon and wishing he had gotten married just to get the 2 weeks off from work. Not inconceivable. Kowalski from Nebraska. It's really strange for the show to be starting so late on Thursday. Usually it's on time, noon sharp. Sam, when the Democrats take control of the Congress in 2026, one of the first things they're going to cut will be the ICE budget, and then Republicans will be used as a talking point in 2028 to maintain the presidency. I mean, that's possible.
You think people will still want to pay this much money for tents that flood immediately in 2 years? I feel like it'd be good to run against all this boondoggle on the border, frankly.
The question's going to be, do the Democrats are they afraid of what you're talking about, Kowalski? Because they're going to have to the government will shut down in that instance, right? They won't be able to come to a budget agreement. The government will shut down. Democrats will be in charge of the House. They'll be terrified of shutting down the government because it'll make them look bad. I mean, look, Chuck Schumer just did this. They just did it. What was it? 3 or 4 months ago, they could have shut the government down. They were afraid, and they weren't even in charge of the government. It's the Senate that's controlled by the Republicans. The House is controlled by the Republicans. The president is controlled by a Republican. And the Democrats were afraid of being responsible for shutting down the government. They're not going to shut down the government over this in 2020, 2027. No. We just need to, people are really going to be pissed at Trump. That's my take on that. I just don't have that kind of faith in the Democrats to do that. This apparatus is going to exist. Listen, ICE came in the wake of 9/11, and there were a lot of people then who were like, "This is just a function of 9/11," and so we won't see this in the future. And
I think the Democrats agree. Some of them agree because they are a broad party, very big tent. Some of them agree with the underlying ideological purpose of ICE. ICE acts as a cudgel to keep a certain part of the working class incredibly precarious. They're part of a stick and carrot system where if you are a certain kind of, indigent farm agricultural housekeeper worker, it allows for the state to constantly keep you under the thumb and prevent you from organizing and, prevent you from demanding better rights. And so that's just the level of precarity that the Democrats think should be built into the system as well. They just don't agree with, I think, some of these overreaches.
I've been told that the ICE block is not for Android.
Oh.
I'm not sure if that's true. It could be a fake one.
No one should make one.
Exactly. 100%. All right, let's get into this. This is 2 months ago, Matt?
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
I think we played this, didn't we?
No, I don't think so.
Well, let's talk about Joe Rogan. Because, let's start with Jimmy Dore.
Okay.
Jimmy Dore? That's a name I haven't heard in many years.
Dore is reacting to, it's just funny because Jimmy Dore is being stupid, reacting to Joe Rogan being stupid in talking to Bernie Sanders. So it's like a stupid squared. It's really impressive. You guys have the tear sheet of the Washington Post article ready, right?
Yeah, we'll have that ready. Yeah.
Okay. So this is on climate change, and Rogan, during his conversation with Bernie Sanders, we covered this video yesterday, said, Washington Post, and kudos to the Washington Post for having the guts to report this. We're actually in a cooling period of the planet. And there was one article that said, yes, like broad strokes, we're in a cooling period, but it's also like our heating up is going like this.
We're in a broad cooling period and an acute warming period.
A warming period, but also on literally both sides of the article, above it and below it, it was quoting science. It's going like, this is really catastrophic, because the last time we'd had situations like this, it was a mass extinction, situation. And they think that climate change means that the planet's going to evaporate or something. They don't realize that we live on the planet like other animals, and much of the planet, a significant amount of the planet, could become inhabitable, or at the very least extremely difficult to live in, and certainly very, very, very difficult and very, very likely not to be able to sustain the population we have now on the planet. So they don't realize, they think it's like the planet's going to survive. Well, the planet might survive. 5 billion of us might not, but the planet might. And a lot of people are upset about the potential suffering for that. They can't quite figure that out. And here's Jimmy Dore, who can't even quite figure out that they can't quite figure out what they can't figure out.
See the whole thing. I've only watched the first half so far. And, well, let's just get right to it. They're talking about climate change.
But, the other thing that I would do, and, you got to deal with this climate change issue. And I know that, there are some people who think climate change is a hoax. It ain't a hoax. I think the last 10 years have been the warmest on record. And we can create millions of good-paying jobs transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency.
So first of all, he's 100% wrong about that. The last 10 years have not been the hottest on record. It's when you decide to start keeping the records. So yeah, if you go back in the records, a wink of an eye in the, if you go back 5 minutes, yeah, because that's what they do. When did they start keeping these records? The Earth has been around for 4 billion years, right? When did they start keeping these records?
Pause it for a second.
Well,
you know what? You know what the words hottest on record means? It means hottest since we started to keep records.
Yeah.
Right. But also, it's pretty great that he.
Too.
Right.
Go ahead, Binder.
But it's pretty great that he said that, because there was a literally a good example of what could happen to us. There was a mass extinction event because of the changing climate on Earth that caused an entire species of living creatures to be wiped out completely. I mean, this has happened before because of the changing climate.
Because it's been hotter before, is what we're saying.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be as hot as it's ever been on Earth to be uninhabitable for human beings or other types of creatures.
If you go back 5 minutes, yeah, because that's what they do. When did they start keeping these records? The Earth has been around for 4 billion years, right? When did they start keeping these records? Well, Joe Rogan actually pushes back on Bernie on this, right? So you always hear that. Here's Joe. Good tip of the hat for Joe.
I think the climate change issue is very complicated. And I think, did you see the Washington Post piece that they wrote where they did this long-term view? First of all, the reality is that the Earth's temperature has never been static, right? We could both agree on that. It's always been up and down. There's been ice ages and heat waves.
Yeah, and for most of the planet's history, it's been way hotter than it is right now. So this idea that the last 10 years are the hottest on record, it's just when they started keeping records.
Pause it for 1 second. Brandon, Matt, you guys are not scientists. Have humans and other life forms, or I should say other animals, been around for billions of years? I mean, would, for instance, a human necessarily be able to live at those times where the planet's been extremely hotter?
Well, there's only one way to find out. We have to make it but allow me to use a different analogy though. So your temperature changes throughout the day all the time. Your body temperature changes throughout the day. Also, human beings' body temperature over the course of our evolution has changed. That does not mean that if one day you woke up with a 105-degree fever, you would be all right. Right? That would mean that would likely be a bad incident for you, even though you could possibly have been hotter in the past or be hotter in the future.
I could give another example. You could say, or analogy, you could say hey, it is really bad if your body temperature is 60 degrees, Brandon. And then someone else could say, well, I don't know. I was at a morgue and there was humans there whose body temperature was 60 degrees. Well, yes, that's the point. Not that the body's going to disappear at that temperature. It's going to be indicative of they're dead.
Can I try one more? It's if you're at the top of a building, you're I've actually been on the ground before, but that means I can just jump off of this building and I'll be fine because I've been lower than actually the ground is.
Go ahead.
Right now. So this idea that the last 10 years are the hottest on record, it's just when they started keeping records. It's not the history of the the planet.
I honestly can't get over he keeps
most
saying
of
it
our
himself.
planet's history. Did you know that? So that whole thing of
what was that, Bender?
it's blowing my mind that he keeps saying, like, it's not even like he missed the on record thing, and he's like, it's not the hottest. They're saying it's the hottest ever, but it's not. It's the hottest ever on record. No, he's hearing that part, and he's still trying to make that point. They keep saying hottest on record, but that's only when they kept records. Yeah, that's what the on record addendum means. That's why you add the on record part of it. It's unbelievable. He keeps saying it.
Of the planet, it's been way hotter most of our planet's history. Did you know that? So that whole thing of the last 10 years are the hottest on record, that's just the records that humans decided to start keeping.
That
plays into their climate change agenda.
Listen,
but if you go
pause it, I want you, Matt Leck, if you would you Google what was the Earth like 1 billion years ago?
We can't know, Sam. No one was keeping records then.
Yeah.
I mean, let's just see, like, why weren't the human beings keeping records 1 billion years ago? We can Google that and put that on the screen so that we can.
Is, like, we can know that based on like ice core samples.
No, we can know that in terms of ice core samples. But the point is not that the Earth itself is going to go away if it gets too hot. It is about sustaining life as we know it. Just put that up. Put up what like the first thing, like whatever that Google AI thing comes up, or Wikipedia. Just Google what was Earth like 1 billion years ago.
I just think we need better education in this country.
Yeah. All right. Do we have it or no?
It's coming up here.
Because the idea that they don't understand what this is. Okay. Do we have it? Oh, okay. Life was primarily microbial. I suspect that microbes can deal with that kind of heat better than, let's say, animals that might rely on other animals or plants to live off of.
Okay, Fauci.
Go ahead. It's so dumb. It's unbelievable.
I want to see if Joe actually cites the article.
Go back to ice cores and you look at, well, Joe's going to say.
And then the Washington Post looked at it. What was the time period that they looked at? That essentially they found that we're in a cooling period.
So the Washington Post, so there was the scientist, the Washington Post did a story saying that they went back over the last 485 million years, which again is a short period of time but
okay,
we're in a cooling phase. It's been way hotter over the last 500 million years on Earth on average than it is right now.
Okay, so we have to pull up this article again. Or actually, let's let Joe. I guess Joe's going to talk about it some more.
About that.
That the Earth over the past X amount of years, and this was like a very inconvenient discovery, but they had to report the data, and kudos to them for doing that. Scientists have captured the Earth's climate change over the last 485 million years. Here's the surprising place we stand now. So look at the far end of that graph, and you see we're in a cooling period.
Well, I'm not sure. I didn't read that article, but
I didn't read that article. You mean the one article written in the Washington Post that was a reprint from, I think, Science Magazine? The one article that actually debunks all the stuff that you've been saying? You didn't have time to read it? It only takes 5 minutes.
Let's see these articles. Incidentally, 400 million years ago was a relatively warm period. Some glaciers may have existed in the early and middle parts. The temperature gradient from the equator to the poles was not as pronounced as it is today. Aridity was also a factor. What was animal life? We had early amphibians. We're beginning to venture onto land.
But what's so funny is, like, here's the graph they're talking about. Even the one that they're showing, you can see, okay, yes, it's going down. And then there is if you look very closely, a spike going directly up that is noted in all of the copies. So scroll down to some of the copy here. Blah, blah, blah. Keep going. Let's get some of these quotes. Keep scrolling down. Yes. So we know that these catastrophic events shift the landscape of what life looks like. When the environment warms fast, animals and plants can't keep pace with. Now, then the very next paragraph, in the same way as a massive asteroid hitting the Earth, what we're doing now is unprecedented. This is the article Jimmy Dore. Oh, Bernie Sanders didn't even read that article.
The planet is still here, and we had an asteroid hit it. What's the problem?
I think Joe Rogan at least saw the headline and maybe probably one paragraph of it that said, like, actually the Earth has been hotter like previous times when we were microbes. Jimmy didn't even read that much. He just heard Joe reference it.
Do you think like 5 billion years from now, when the sun explodes and the heat of the sun is engulfing us all, do you think people 5 billion years from now are going to deal with like people like this? Like, they said that this was the hottest on record.
We're toast.
But it was
before
hotter
then,
a couple billion years ago.
No,
I mean,
we're all going to be living in like Elon Musk's space stations that like fly through space at like warp speed. So we won't have to worry about anything like that. It's gonna be like Wall-E.
All right, should we keep playing this just a little bit and see where he goes?
A little bit more, yeah.
That was a reprint from, I think, Science Magazine. The one article that actually debunks all the stuff that you've been saying. You didn't have time to read it. It only takes 5 minutes.
Oh, read it then.
Oh, apparently it takes even less time than that.
The most informative, the biggest study that's the scientists have ever done. You didn't have time to read it. It takes 5 minutes.
Jimmy.
Of course you didn't, because it goes against your narrative.
Pause it. Can we, Jimmy, come onto the show and tell us about this climate study that's the biggest one of all time? Please, Jimmy, come on, Majority Report. It's been so long. Tell us, inform us about this. You obviously read it. It took you 5 minutes. It's a kind of a longer article. I'm surprised Jimmy can read it that
you
fast.
read the article, you just look.
Oh yeah, Science Magazine. I'm a big fan of that.
What I like to do when I read the article is I just read the big parts. Where they write in the 24-point font. That's the parts that I read. It's where you can skim it.
This is the very first paragraph. Oh shit! Go up to the first paragraph in that, just to read it. Just if that's all you read, was the very first paragraph. It says this: an ambitious effort to understand the Earth's climate over the past 485 million years has revealed a history of wild shifts and far hotter temperatures than scientists previously realized. Offering a reminder of how much change the planet has already endured, and a warning about the unprecedented rate of warming caused by humans.
Well, why would, if it's been warmer before, why?
I don't know if he should come on this show though and make a claim, because the last time he did that worst case scenario immediately happened months later, didn't it?
What, do you think the Republicans are going to get the Supreme Court or something?
What did he say? It's more likely that the moon falls into Lake Michigan, right?
Then that Trump would get a couple of Supreme Court appointments. Yeah.
I think his exact number was 3 too. I think his exact number was 3.
Look, who could have predicted that?
Right.
Update on the vote right now is that Johnson apparently is giving a speech, or just about, maybe he's just wrapping up, where he's mocking Hakeem Jeffries, and I think they're about to vote. So I don't know if we'll get the final results, but it's very likely that this will pass.
You want to do Batya?
Oh yeah, I don't know if I have this one on my list, but yes. This is what's her name again?
Batya Ungar Sargon.
She has been like the self-appointed, I think. I don't know if it's an official position. So progressive that she's for Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is such a determined populist. And you know this because when he got elected the first time, that night he traveled over to the, I think it's the 21 Club in New York City, where the average dish is something like $70 a plate or something to that effect, and went around promising rich people, I'm going to cut you taxes. I'm going to cut you taxes. Now, you know that he's a working man's hero because he says things like, that lady is a pig, or stuff like, Not all Mexicans are rapists. That is the essence of progressive values, or I should say progressive populist values. And, but sometimes then all of a sudden legislation happens.
I think from the math point of view, from the moral point of view, and from the political point of view, raising taxes on the wealthy is just a winner. It helps with the math. It helps pay down the deficit. Morally, I mean, why are we comfortable taking a risk on rural hospitals?
A risk?
But we're not comfortable saying to a billionaire, pay a little more, you'll never feel it. I think there's this fallacy that they couldn't have kept the tax cuts for the working class and the middle class while then raising it for the rich. And another fallacy you pointed out, which is a really good one, that the brackets have to stay where they are. Why should it be that a person who's making $500,000 a year should be in the same tax bracket as a billionaire? And this brings me to the political question, which is 65% of Americans who make over $500,000 a year now, so that top bracket as it is right now, are Democrats. Why is the party of the working class bending over backwards to give tax cuts to Democrats? For every billionaire who backed President Trump, Kamala Harris had 2. Why is the party of the working class bending over backwards? It's like they have this muscle memory. There's another fallacy here that corporate taxes and taxes for the rich are the same thing. They're not. The president has been brilliant in dropping the corporate tax rate to bring back and reshore manufacturing to increase the incentive for jobs creators. That's great. That's totally
All right, hold on. I have to.
different
There's
from
too much that's like starting to pile up here. One of the main drivers of wealth inequality in this country is the cutting of corporate taxes because it essentially provides pre-tax dollars to wealthy people. It also, obviously, we could get it on the back end with our income taxes downstream from that. But the problem with wealth inequality is a function of corporate taxes being slashed so much and where they're putting their money. They're not putting it into their workers. They're not putting it into wages. And I just think that she doesn't know what the word fallacy means. Because fallacy implies that there is some type of like calculation that's being made. And in fact, this is ideological. When 100% of your caucus, 99% of your caucus in the Senate, and 99% of your caucus in the House, and 100% of the executive all are on the same page, I've got news for you. It's not a working class party. And to the extent that it is, to the extent that she can make any argument that more working class people voted for Donald Trump, which I don't think is the case, they are clearly not voting on material desires. They are voting on an aesthetic because there has been nothing in the Republican platform that has suggested they're going to provide for any of this. And she is a pundit who is supposed to have more sophistication theoretically about politics than your average voter. And he's surprised by this. She thinks it's a logical fallacy that you can't tax billionaires. But it's also an ideological choice.
Yeah, I mean, spoiler alert, the GOP hates poor people. That's their whole ideology. Like, that's the moral component of their ideology in the story that they tell about poor people. Like, you know, I sometimes think when people, and I've seen this happen a lot in the media, people frame the like cuts to Social Security, the cuts to Medicaid, Medicare, and SNAP as being part of some kind of practical equation to offset the tax cuts to the wealthy. It's not because of that. They hate poor people. They love rich people, but that's because it's all part of one hierarchy in which they think and assign negative traits to people based on how much money they have. So like they just hate poor people and they love rich people. The conflation of people with $500,000, people with $1 billion is just to like, again, to muddy the waters around like the class war that is currently going on right now.
The vote was just taken. 2 of the 218 Republicans in the House voted against a bill that will cut $1 trillion from Medicaid, which goes to working class people. SNAP, billions cut from SNAP. We're going to see millions of people lose their SNAP benefits. We're going to see 15 million, maybe more, lose their health insurance. We're going to see billions of dollars go into ICE to round up working class immigrants. I mean, on and on and on. And it's not a logical fallacy. It is the raison d'etre of the party, as Brandon says.
It's what they believe. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, right-wing populism is a scam, and it's always been a scam. It's an affinity scam. It's one where rich people try to trick poor people into believing that they have like interests in society by referencing like race or referencing, nationality. But ultimately, it just always ends up like this, like the funneling of money from the working class up into the uber wealthy. That's like what their ideology is all about.
Did she say anything else?
For jobs creators, that's great. That's totally different from SALT deductions for rich liberals. So I think you've been completely correct on this. And I truly appreciate the point you made earlier that seeing 18 Republicans join Susan Collins and even contemplate going to people making over $25 million a year and saying, you pay for the rural hospitals, I think that's a really good sign of where the party's going.
Oh my God. What, 18 considered going with Susan Collins? Susan Collins has always been considered an outlier in the Republican Party. Are you kidding me?
So you're saying there's a reason to still book me for this fantasy I'm selling about the Republicans, huh? What a surprise that she's saying, oh, actually, everything I've been selling that's gotten me in front of cameras about the Republicans being the working class party, it's actually been a big lie, and maybe you shouldn't even book me anymore.
Yeah, I mean, isn't this like Steve Bannon's show that she's on? I don't think you mentioned
she's
it.
on
It's like
Bannon's
on the War Room. But a lot of these people like have to cover their asses now that Trump is in power and doing everything that he said he wouldn't do. A lot of these like, more establishment adjacent right-wing figures who don't feel comfortable like jettisoning themselves away from Trump and like going full anti-Israel like Candace Owens, they have to explain to their audience like why they leveraged all of their faith in them to promote someone who's giving all of their tax dollars to groups that he said he wouldn't, in the form of Israel, in the form of Ukraine for a lot of these people as well. Although obviously he's pulled back from that in ways that are like not particularly acceptable. But yeah, like, they have to answer for this stuff because Trump doesn't. Like Trump is checked out. Like he's still scamming and wheeling and dealing.
It's a win. He's going to Iowa tonight to sell this to people. There's still 2 Republicans that have not voted. It's 2016 to 2014, but I don't think those 2 are going to vote against the bill, would be my guess.
Looks like one of them joined with the yays, and there's one that didn't vote now. Per C-SPAN.
It's passed. The bill is passed.
It's also laughable that there was any such thing as like a fiscal hawk on the Republican side, like anyone who actually had a principled disagreement with like the government spending. That's just like such a joke. Like
such a joke.
Maybe some of them thought they did because they came up in the party like post Tea Party, like though they imagined that they had some kind of, because they heard it so much. But like once challenged on it, like it never was a real thing. So they had nothing to really fall back on other than like, well, what are you going to do for me? Like how
they're
like,
big. The big thing that supposedly turned them was that the rate, not even the rate of rolling back the IRA tax credits. It was going to be the enforcement of the early rescission of those IRA tax cuts. The president promised us he's really going to pay attention to that. I mean, we're talking like literally change that you would find in your couch relative to the dollars in this bill, and it's just a lie. It was just like, and that was what's amazing about that is that's the best you could come up with. Like as you walk out of that, they basically saying like, we're gonna make sure that there's none of these solar projects or wind projects. We're going to make sure that they're actually spending 5% of their of building this thing so that they're eligible for the tax credit by the end of this year. Or, I mean, like, are you kidding me? You couldn't come up with anything else?
Wow.
All right, let me read a couple IMs, and then I guess we're going to get out of here. From Illude427 in the Twitch chat. Sam, can I get a shofar for my father who passed away last night? After 25 years, he received a green card and was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. He spent his legal years in and out of hospital and fought really hard until his last breath. 4 long years. It took it like a champ. Thank you.
Sorry to hear that.
I'm very sorry to hear that. This goes out to your dad. Number 13, it's good that these social program cuts can happen later. The laws can just be changed, though I'm sure the recipient administrators, the states themselves, are going to take austerity measures in preparation. I'm not saying the change is definitely going to happen, but at least there's time as an opportunity. I mean, I think that's a positive spin on it, but I'm willing to take it. I'm not sure how a Democratic-controlled Congress is going to be able to roll that back, but hope springs eternal. Certainly, the Republicans thought, okay, the ACA is not going in for 4 years after it was passed, or 11, and they thought they could repeal it multiple times. They never had that opportunity. We'll see. All right, a couple more IMs, and then we will go. Daniel from Virginia, Ice Block is seemingly not available for Android devices. I think you're right. Tom Cotton's beard. DeSantis oversaw torture at Guantanamo. Absolutely magnification needs to happen. Mo D, for these mythical able-bodied men on Medicaid, how much health care were they actually receiving, given that they are able-bodied? That's a good point. They're very able-bodied, except for they're also they're going in for regular checkups.
Getting icy hot and stuff.
Ramona Frankenstein. Sam, who's ever reading IMs in the fun half, can I get a shofar, whatever sound drop you think is most appropriate? My youngest niece, Ruby, turns 4 years old today. Happy birthday. Mr. Melancholy. Hey, I'm our crew. That's the IM. That's it. Privo Chivy. I know y'all have been covering the budget bill a lot, but have you seen the cuts to NOAA? I have that. It's going to be crazy. We'll get to it. I promise you next week. Extremely depressing to see one of the best and most useful government bodies be torn apart like this. I don't think we're going to have a full opportunity to understand the implications of what's happening to our government. I mean, look, we were saying this in the run-up to the inauguration. They have been planning for 3 or 4 years on how they're going to dismantle everything. And when you dismantle this stuff, you're a scientist. You don't want to stop your work. And you've got other countries who are interested in having your research, your brains, whatnot, universities. I mean, we're destroying the fabric of our society, like bare root stuff. We're in the what is it called with computers? The root base. That's where we're like down in the operating system stuff. All right, 3 more of these. Oatmeal. I called my representative, Mike Haradopoulos, yesterday and asked him not to vote for the BBB. I tried calling 3 times today. Every time it either drops my call or doesn't allow me to proceed. Yep. Edward Gregorian. Can't wait to celebrate America tomorrow. What the F, man? Yeah, no kidding. Timing is horrible. And the final IM of the day, small d Democrat. Zionist, Black Lives Matter, stop Asian hate. We denounce all form of bigotry. That said, Israeli scientists have determined that the Arab is a human animal that must be exterminated. Okay, let's read on. Let's end on a maybe more uplifting note. Woods from Chicago might as well change their name to the House Freedom Caucus.
Got him.
Nice. Brandon, Matt, Brian. What a sausage fest. Jesus. Great job today, guys. Folks, have a great 4th to the extent that you can. And we will be back live on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I wasn't looking when I just got caught between the truth and the light bar, but finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I get somewhere the choice was made, for the option where you don't get paid, for the road that bends before it finally breaks you. I guess somehow I lost my drive between the 101 and the 5. Do you know how far the detour takes you? Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the